Hello, 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 and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, to the second day of Sinister's CyberCon. I'm Jay, back again. Wanted to introduce you to our guests today, one of which we were able to announce, the other one we luckily got. First off, we have Hollywood producer William Clevinger, from The Devil's Carnival, Under the Bed, and Office Uprising, and the upcoming Cutthroat City. William Clevinger.
What's up, guys?
How are you, William?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm down here in Florida, so everything's starting to reopen from this quarantine period. So
oh yes, Florida was one of the first to start reopening everything, huh?
Yeah, I had my birthday on May 6th, so that was Wednesday. So we actually got to go.
Happy late birthday.
Thanks, man. We got to go out into the new world and celebrate it with everyone in mass in the restaurant, so on and so forth. So
terrific.
Different times we're in. But I think we've got a friend of mine who's taking some time to come and surprise everybody.
We do. Speaking of the upcoming Cutthroat City, we have one of the stars with us, Denzel Whitaker. Denzel, are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, terrific.
What up, dude?
Hey. What up, Will? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's good to see your face, bro. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, man. Likewise, of course. I'm letting the hair grow out, as you can see. I had to put a hat on.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm becoming Pippi Longstocking over here at a certain point.
Oh, don't rub in the whole hair issue. Guys, come on. I'm right here.
Listen, ain't nobody throwing stones. I just know Will to always grow wonderful long hair. So for him, he can rock this daily. For me, I'm going all natural.
It looks good,
you know?
It looks good. I like it.
Thanks, man.
Let's start off the conversation since we have you here, Denzel. Let's start off the conversation with Cutthroat City.
Sure, yeah.
If anybody has not seen the trailer yet, I was lucky enough to watch it a couple of times last night, and my God, I cannot wait for this thing to come out. This is going to be a huge film, and I'm not exaggerating. I hope everybody who joins us on the live stream and watches later, after this conversation, if they haven't already, go see the trailer for Cutthroat City. So tell us, William, about this project.
So, man, it's, I spent, Denzel's heard me talk about this just through the various points of my career because we've known each other for so long. But, I think as a producer, director, writer, anything, you go your entire career wanting to have something that, for lack of a better word, when it comes out, would resonate to where it could, withstand the test of time. I mean, ultimately, that's what we all do. I have a quote I came up with years ago, which I don't know if I stole from somebody, but I've never really seen it. But it's, critics come and go, but a film will last forever, right? And so
I love that.
This movie, I really feel like we achieved that. And, I've gone 15 years in this business now trying to get somebody that would just get behind me and believe in me, that was in a bigger position than I ever was in. And, fortunately, that was RZA. And what he blessed me with this movie, it's going to carry me through the rest of my life, no matter what I do. And not to overhype this, but, we made something really special. So I'm very excited for everybody to see it.
Did RZA approach you? Did you approach RZA? How did this project come to you?
So very quick story. I had a period probably about 7 or 8 years ago to where I had to come back to Florida because I had some family stuff going on. And during that time, when I was a kid, I grew up playing sports, and specifically basketball. And I had always wanted to get into the NBA used to co-run this celebrity basketball league. So they called it the NBA Entertainment League. And by no means have I ever been famous. But I reached out when I was in Florida during that time period, and I emailed the guy that ran the entire thing. And he's like, yeah, when you get back to LA, he's like, be in touch. We'll see if we can get you in.
Yeah.
And it was Grammy weekend of like 2012 or 2013. And I got this random email because they didn't have enough players. So I went down there. My very first game, I ended up meeting a guy by the name of Sam Daly, who's been in a bunch of my movies. He's in Cutthroat City. He was in Submerged with Denzel also. And Sam and I, from the very first day in that league, we just formed a very great relationship. And he's actually the person that gave me this script. And it was written by somebody else who played in the league by the name of Paul Cucchieri, who he's been a ghostwriter for years, but it never really got anything produced. And this was his first piece of material. And
wow.
Yeah, man, him and RZA had linked on something else indirectly from this. They shared the same agent, Cameron Mitchell, who was instrumental in us being able to put this entire thing together. And, Paul gave me that script, and I spent the better part of 2, almost 3 years just with him and RZA trying to get it made. It had been around for forever. Right after Hurricane Katrina happened, they had actually went out with a different set of producers to try to get it made. Like, if you Google articles online, you'll find an announcement with like Little John, and I think it was like, God, who else was in the cast? Nick Cannon or somebody way back when, in one other iteration. But
they had reached out to like Lil Wayne and whatnot at the time. Right. Like, yeah.
Right. And so
it was a whole different project.
Yeah, man. That's kind of how it came about. I had the belief of Paul, and knew him through the years, and then never actually, I spent probably about 1.5 years before I ever actually physically met RZA working on trying to get this made. And we had a premiere party for a movie I was involved in called Grow House, which starred D. Ray Davis. And D. Ray like disappeared from the after party, and we didn't know where the hell he was. And I texted him to see, and he ended up getting a table at some other club to go and throw his own party. And he's like, hey, man, he's like, come over here. Somebody wants to meet you. And I'm like, who the hell is he talking about? And I walk in. He's like, just tell the door guy. He's like, my table's on stage. We're VIP. And I'm like, okay. And so I go in there, and I walk in. I find D-Ray. And all of a sudden, someone's rapping on the mic, and I don't know who the hell it is. I feel a tap on my shoulder. I turn around. It was literally RZA. And we're on stage in a club in front of an audience. I got D-Ray by me. It's my very first time meeting RZA after we had been working for about 1 year on the movie. And
oh my goodness.
Like, it's the best story ever. He's like, 1 second, I got to finish this song. Then we'll come and we'll break bread. And he went back. He's got a kind of like rock group that he does with Paul Banks, called Banks and Stills. And they were like there for a like post-show party. And he just happened to get on the mic and start singing in the middle of like this club.
Right when you were there.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. And so that was how we met for the first time. And then he got us drinks and we cheers, and he's like, let's go dance. And that's basically what we've been doing ever since. So it was crazy, man.
Awesome. Denzel, was this a project that somebody handed you the script, or was this something that, since the announcement was so long ago, was this something that you've been interested in trying to find a way to get involved with since the first announcement with Lil Wayne and Nick Cannon and everybody?
So funny enough, very much how Will just basically described his story, same sort of thing. It just organically sort of fell into place. So I'm with my family, I believe it was the day before Thanksgiving, and I get a text message from Will. Now, mind you, we worked on a film, Submerged. What year was that, Will? Was that 2014?
It was like 2013, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, wow. Jesus. So we worked in 2013, and then I get a text from Will 2017, literally the day before Thanksgiving. He's like, yo, brother, how you doing, man? I hope all is well. Do you have time to hop on a phone call? I said, sure, yeah. I'm chilling. We hop on a phone call. He details me the long list of everybody who's attached to the project. And he's like, I just put your name in the hat, went straight to RZA's office. He's highly interested. Is this something you would be interested in? And without a question, first of all, I already know Will's work, just having been on a set before with him. But once he detailed that out to me, I was like, sure. And I think literally 2-3 days later, I was on a plane.
Yeah, the cool thing was, I didn't, when I hit Denzel up about that, I didn't even talk to RZA yet, and I had no idea. But Denzel almost got cast in one of the lead roles of RZA's previous film, Love Beats Rhymes, that he made. Lionsgate. And so I put Denzel on hold. I'm like, wait a second, let me at least go talk to him real quick. went into his office, and I'm like, hey, Denzel Whitaker. He's like, oh, I love Denzel. And so, we made him the offer. He didn't even he didn't read, didn't audition, nothing. It was based on, his previous work with both of us. Even though RZA had never worked with him, he was a mad admire and respected his work. So,
well, there's been a lot of amazing films that have, when they've come together, people have said it was just things fell into place the right way, the right people, the right time. So this sounds like Cutthroat
100%.
City has got that blessing coming as well, with things falling in the right spot. Now, Denzel, you are obviously no stranger to films, because you got your start, what I want to say 19 years ago with Training Day.
Correct. Yeah.
So
what is that, like almost 20 years ago now? Yeah, going on.
Yes,
that was my first role.
that was your very first role, and then
first role.
You've worked with some amazing talent over the years, alongside what you give. You, of course, in Training Day. Later on in Great Debaters, you had Denzel Washington and Forrest Whitaker. And then you were mentioning that this project, the names that were already attached when you went in to talk, who were already involved in Cutthroat City by the time William called you up and said, hey, this is who we're going to be talking to?
So, and Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty much I believe like Shamik, Demetrius, Kian, Kat, was Terrence already locked at the time? Yeah, Terrence was locked. Wesley, was he locked at the time?
Wesley was locked. The first two people that came into the movie, Shamik.
For those watching, if you're not looking at the trailer, if you don't know, it's of course Wesley Snipes. It's of course Terrence Howard. We're talking about Isaiah Washington is in this as well.
Isaiah Washington, yep. Yeah, so, and also Asa Gonzalez as well. Asa Gonzalez was already attached. So yeah, we had a knockout cast, and then of course on the back end we have Ethan Hawke coming to round up and pretty much bring his gifts to the table. So by the time I was already coming in, a vast majority of everybody was already on the list.
Yeah, Denzel. I mean, I'll say who he replaced. It was funny, man, because we had the core group of kids that wanted to do this because it was RZA for the longest time. Demetrius, Shamik, and it was actually Evan Ross, is who. Not a lot of people know that. That's really the first time that's publicly being said, but that's who Denzel came. He had commitments for his Star show that he couldn't get out of because they were shifting around the schedule. And we were literally, but I mean, we had prepped the entire movie. Like, we were breaking for Thanksgiving, and our first day was pretty much the first week after. So, I mean, I called Denzel. There was only one person I thought of for that, and it was him. And I would also, you can't really get a hold of agents or managers or anybody else during a national holiday.
No.
And so that's kind of how it happened, man. It was crazy. And I just got a private message on here, indirectly enough. So Shane Duffy, the guy that runs the E-League, which is kind of how all this was even made possible, I guess his niece is in this live stream right now. And I don't even know.
I see that.
That's funny.
Yeah, she's actually one of the people that are backstage helping run this with us.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Small world. So there you
go. In the chat, Sinister Creature Con just posted the trailer for Cutthroat City. So anybody who's watching, that's a direct link to go straight there so you can watch it as well, making sure that you give this movie a shot. This is the story, the cast, like what you're saying, everything coming together. This feels like a very large film.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. I always thought like the whole thing, if you build it, they will come. And, this thing started with RZA, obviously, and we had another actor. The role that Ethan Hawke's in was originally somebody else. I can't say who, but,
it was me. We don't need to discuss.
Yeah, no, that's what I used to really piece the entire movie together. And then, I had done a film called Office Uprising, and two of my partners on that were Sean Lydiard, Elliott Smith, and also Jim Still. And back when we were doing that movie, I did not even meet RZA at the time when I was doing that. We were just talking, like I was saying, And I gave the script to Jim and Sean, and I was like, guys, help me get this financed, because they were the ones that got Office Uprising financed. And even still, when I got in the car to drive to New Orleans, you know, we had no financier. Everyone thought I was crazy. And I was like, I just got to keep going forward. I mean, even RZA, when RZA got on a plane and flew to New Orleans, we still had no financier. He did that against the advice of his agents and his team. And, you know, it was truly, man, it was the belief that I had in so many people, but him more than anybody. And, you know, thank God for Michael Mendelsohn, who financed the movie and Patriot Pictures. Michael had a background in film investment, but on the bank side, from working in banks back in the day. And so the script had reminded him of New Jack City. He put the financing together for that. And
I was just saying when I saw the trailer, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, and so it's definitely got flavors of that. And that was the big thing. You know, Jim still lives across the street from Michael. And so that was the whole thing. You know, I'm down in New Orleans basically trying to prep an entire movie. You know, we'll talk about Steven and Scott Putman as well. But I had gone to work, you know, I had just inducted my buddy Stephen Miller, who directed Denzel and Submerged, and I went to college with a Full Sail. I had just inducted him into the Hall of Fame at Full Sail, like the beginning of 2017. And he asked me if I wanted to come and basically just have his back and essentially be his assistant, which I had no problem doing on Escape Plan 2. And so, you know, I went to Atlanta to do that for 2 months. I did not know Scott Putman before that, but Steven was wanting to introduce Scott and I together because he thought that there might be some synergy. And had I not gone and done that, you know, that's why I always tell kids whenever I'm talking to like students, you know, never turn down a job, even if you think it's below you or something along those lines, because you don't know what's going to come from it. Had I not gone and worked as Steven's assistant on that movie, I would have never met Scott Putman. And had I not met Scott Putman, we also would have never made Cutthroat City, because Scott actually got Emmett Furla. He was finishing up another project for them after we did Escape Plan. And instead of getting his return flight home to LA, he had them fly him down to New Orleans, where I had no money and I was trying to put this thing together. And, you know, Scott getting down there was the kind of like linchpin driving force behind kicking everything into gear, because he was able to use all of his relationships in New Orleans to essentially get stuff kind of pro bono without us paying for it up front when we had no money. I mean, we really prepped this entire movie for no money. That was me just knowing I had something that ultimately it was just going to work out. And, you know, it was either going to be that or that was going to be the end of everything. And it was the belief, man, in so many people. And then, you know, like Denzel said, the cast just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Even, you know, a year later when we shot Ethan Hawke after Principal Photography, you know, Ethan got behind it and believed in it. And it's really been something else, man.
Could you feel that on the set as far as the amount of love going forward, trying to get this made no matter what? Was that evident for you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know, Will and I, we just, to kind of catch you guys up, we even had a conversation last night about this. We were just catching up brother to brother. And it's one of those things where, like, when you put your passion and you put so much love and care and attention into a script and you beat it all on the page, and then, like Will just sort of described, you know, having that faith to step out and to go prep a film even before you get a lick of financing, you know, once you put in that sweat equity and you really believe in something, I think that is a testament to how amazing of a product you actually sit on. So for me personally, like, again, even though Will's my brother and he called me and he was like, would you love to be a part of this? I read the script and I was instantly blown away. But again, I'm also, you know, a Wu-Tang baby. Like, I'm such a fan of RZA and his artistry, and over the years to see, you know, the beautiful masterworks that he's given to the culture. So you know that there's time and there's love. He wouldn't just step onto a project unless he truly believed in it. I know Will, and I know his integrity and his values as a producer. He doesn't get behind something he doesn't believe. And every single day when we stepped on set, you could feel how appreciative, but how honest everybody was to just dedicate to the words that were written down, you know, to dedicate to what PG has basically written down. So I think once you set that intention on whatever film set you step on, you're bound to make something. I think Will beautifully said it. You know what I mean? Critics will come and go, but a film will last forever. And that's I think what we set out to do. I don't think anybody, from what I remember, it was an incredible experience. Nobody put their egos before the project, you know?
Well, that's wonderful to hear, because you unfortunately hear the opposite side of that too often.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate, and it does happen. Like, I'm not sitting here blind to say that. You know, I've experienced that within the past within my career, and I try to, you know, get behind projects. It all kind of depends on who you work with, you know, who you choose to work with. And once again, you know, I'm very thankful to work with my brother Will, and you know, to work with RZA, who I admired, and now we get to, you know, see each other eye to eye, artist to artist. You know, that's a blessing in and of itself.
For somebody who, as you said, grew up on Wu-Tang, that's got to be an amazing. I've done something here now that I'm right alongside somebody who I consider an icon.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's awesome it's really cool, you know, to have that connection for life. Like, at the end of the day, Denzel and I, you know, everyone involved in this film, we are connected to Wu-Tang for life because of RZA. And that's something that's,
exactly,
you know, that's global. It's nuts. I went to, you know, I was in Amsterdam, and I was checking into this hotel, and literally I had on a 36 Chambers jacket that RZA had given to me. And the hotel manager, he goes, oh, he's like Wu-Tang? And I'm like, yeah, I just got done doing a movie. Turns out he was a filmmaker himself. And, you know, that gave us like this instant connection because of that. And then we started talking about this, and he became a dear friend of mine. And it's really cool, man. You know,
that is awesome. Now, William, I need to bring up, because I know our fan base needs to talk about some of your horror work. As a producer, we're looking at Cutthroat City. We look at the comedy, the dark comedy of Office Uprising. We look at Under the Bed, which was a tremendous horror film, which was just a great take on the monster under the bed for children scene. And then go back to Devil's Carnival. You've got such a diverse range of what you pick. How do you go about finding projects?
Man, you know, early on, it was whatever I could get hired on or get made. And no, I mean, you know, I basically, you know, I knew I couldn't produce overnight. So I was like, oh, how can I make a name for myself in this? And I started line producing and then working as a production manager. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough through the years to just really build good relationships. And a lot of people refer to me as a pieces producer, right? Because I always know how to take pieces and put them together. And I'm a very good judge of work and character and kind of people's talent per se. And so that's kind of how I've always based things. You know, I'll meet somebody like Paul Cuscieri, which he had never gotten a movie made, but I knew the writing. I knew him as a person. And, you know, I would just always stick by things and my beliefs in people. And, you know, that goes in my life, even outside of film. When I believe in people, I believe in them, you know, until the very end. And so that was kind of how I've always been able to put projects together. And, you know, I've been fortunate, and Stephen C. Miller and I, we went to college together. We're going to be connected for life, you know, just like I am to RZA. And Stephen, we've always kind of had each other's backs, and we've opened doors for one another, literally from the very beginning. His manager, who reps him right now, Adam Goldworm, who he's been with for over a decade. You know, I met Adam at Comic-Con when we were trying to promote the Comic-Con Transfusion, the first thing we had ever made. Showed Adam the trailer, and he's like, man, you know, he's like, I got to meet this kid. And so that's the thing, man. It's been a support system. It's all about relationships, and that's how I've kind of gravitated from project to project through the years. And, you know, when we were doing, I think we were either filming, it was either Under the Bed or Submerged. Darren Bousman came by set. You know, he saw what we were doing for no money. You know, not a lot of people know this, but we made Devil's Carnival for like just over $200,000, which is like not a lot of money for what that is. I think Darren was one of the main financiers of that at the time. And, he saw what Steven and I were doing in the low budget world and what we were building for not a lot of money and what we were putting on screen. And so, the way I was working on things was kind of how it gradually built upon each other.
Yeah.
All the way up to even, Cut the City. Like I said, getting the belief of RZA and what I had previously done for Paul and other people, telling him, that's how it all came together.
Well, and you mentioned fan bases that you're now forever connected to. And then you mentioned Devil's Carnival. That franchise, we have a question actually about that franchise because that franchise has a huge fan base. Teray McQueen asks, is there any possibility that we're going to see the conclusion of that franchise?
Man, that's kind of a question for Darren, but that's something I've actually wanted to do as well, or ask him about. I wasn't involved in part 2. I was making the film Grow House with D-Ray that I was talking about.
Yes.
DJ Pooh. So when they were shooting that, and same cinematographer, I've worked with Joseph White a lot through the years. That was the other thing, right? Relationships and connections. Joe had shot Repo, the genetic opera, for Darren, and then I knew Joe from just other projects I had made, and we did a TV pilot for Fox called Tease together right after he had done Repo. And so, I introduced Joe to Steven before Brandon Cox was shooting everything for Steven. It was Joe White, and so we've kind of gravitated. And then going back to things with RZA's cinematographer on Love Beats Rhymes was Joe White. So that was kind of a blessing thing as well. It really is relationships 9 times out of 10 and what those people say about you.
So it's
I would love, go ahead.
You've spent this time creating a family, if you were, correct?
And that's what it is, man. Absolutely. Every movie you end up becoming family with specific and certain people on that. And I've tried to carry that over into all my work through the years. I mean, if you go and look, you can play connect the dots on IMDb, but you pretty much see there's at least one person that's been involved in kind of everything
throughout the process.
And so, I hope Darren would complete the franchise. I know it's not just up to him. It's up to kind of some of the financiers that were involved. But I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to him. I mean, I would love to be involved in part 3 if there was one moving forward.
You've got some fans asking questions about it right here at the live feed. Maybe that'll get some fire underneath.
He gets hounded about it still to this day. That's what was really cool about getting it. That was kind of the first thing I ever made that had a fan base behind it. And I'll never forget doing the roadshow tour when he took it out like on the road. And, four-walled theater before people were kind of doing that, how they do now. And I remember going to the screening in Tampa and signing autographs on posters and just having people like following around, buying drinks and everything at like after stuff. That was a crazy experience. And I mean, he still has that to this day. I'm super stoked that he's back behind the reboot of Saw. So doing Spiral with Chris Rock. That's going to be awesome.
Now, Denzel, as we're talking about family, we have a question here in the comments. John Scott wants to know, what's it like being a part of the MCU family?
Oh, man. John, that's a crazy family to be a part of. I'm not even going to lie with you. That is probably the largest production I have ever been on in my entire life. The scope of what you can imagine. It really is a kind of thing from a production standpoint, because just to quickly kind of catch everybody up to speed, I stepped behind the camera maybe a couple of years ago. So I produce and direct my own films as well. So
Wonderful.
Thank you. That's another reason why Will and we relate so well. And to kind of answer another question I see in the chat, we are friends and we'll continue to collaborate as we've talked about future projects together, just because that's how we also bond as filmmakers. We have a passion for film and we want to keep producing and making stories that we're passionate about. So you step on the Marvel universe and I'm just kind of looking at the numbers and I'm thinking like, this is what money actually affords you, is time and the luxury to bring on people who are excellent at their craft. And so from literally the day I stepped on set, my scenes, I maybe had 2-3 pages worth of dialogue. We broke that up over the course of a week. we shot what essentially would be 2 pages over 2 days, which is almost unheard of, unless you're dealing with something of that magnitude. And when I walked into the wardrobe department, you're seeing all of the different sort of cultures that they've broken up with all the different, tribes that would be in Wakanda. Even to the point where we're walking through the studio. I think we shot at a old fiber optic studio, and it was massive. Like the sets that they've built, you would be lucky if you could fit one of those sets inside maybe a regular soundstage. Well, they had maybe 8 to 9 of those things all within this massive factory, and everybody's sort of working on one piece. Like, to sort of briefly describe the scope, the scene that we shot in the jungle where the convoy, I think there's like 10 convoy trucks going through the jungle. Well, that was actually mainly like a live jungle. Like, they built up trees. They had those 10 convoys going through. You have RE light sky panels covering the whole thing, and that's just maybe 1/8 of maybe what we were working with in terms of real estate. So, yeah, working in the Marvel universe is just, the scale is massive, but also the security that you must undergo in terms of signing documents, making sure everything's, electronically passed, not taking pictures. Fans loved any sort of information they could get. So
yeah, how much of anything did you get to share? Did you get to tell people you were even in the movie?
Oh my God, no, not at all.
Not at all.
I found out maybe around Christmas time, which was an incredible present that they had basically been tracking my work, and they loved what I had done in the audition and wanted to offer me the role. So by the time I found out, everything was done electronically through a Disney database. So there's no actual paper being transacted because they want to monitor where everything's going. And of course, for myself, I'm given only so much of the script. So for me personally, I didn't necessarily know what was happening in the script. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I didn't even know if my role was going to get cut. So I was like, let me not tell anybody I'm in the film, on top of I can't really share this news in the beginning. So I was like, just in case we show up at the theater and my role is cut, I don't want anybody to know. But now I can tell anybody.
As an actor who you, with your performances, you obviously see you do the work as background material and what you feel your character is coming from. How is that when you don't have a complete script to work off of to do your craft? How does that affect you as an actor?
So particularly for this one, because I have, a previous relationship with Forrest, but also Ryan Coogler, who I was a large fan and admirer of. It was one of those things where you use the guidance of time. This is where you really have to lean upon your director to sort of give you the information that you need. And like you said, I love to do the character work as much as possible. We worked with a dialect coach. I wanted to learn about South African cultures. Thankfully, I shot a film in South Africa prior, so I already sort of knew a little bit about what the African culture was like.
Which movie was that?
So that film was Back to School Mom. That was with Kimberly Elise and Harry Lennox. We shot it in South Africa, even though it was supposed to be like a San Francisco site. But, due to tax benefits and, of course, stretching the budget, it just made sense.
Oh, yeah. You are where you film where you can film.
Exactly. You go where you can go. And I ain't mad at it either. I will take a vacation to South Africa and go do a film. That is the blessings and the benefit that I get as a performer, is I get to travel the world and experience it while doing my craft. So put me on a plane,
So we talk about these massive sets of the MCU. So let me bring it back to William. Let's talk about the claustrophobic set of Under the Bed.
Yes, sir.
What was that filming process like? This was, if people have not seen Under the Bed, it is such a great take on when children say there's something under my bed, there's something in the closet. And this film gave it rules to follow and gave it things that you have to pay attention to. But that set was very much a character. What was the process of filming that?
Man, so you're talking about like the Under the Bed world? or just the
everything in that the house itself is so claustrophobic.
Yeah, so crazy stories, man. Just the way that stuff works out. It's we made that movie for about 240 some thousand odd dollars. And we discovered Johnny Weston, who went on to be the lead in Project Almanac for Michael Bay. He was in the Divergent franchise. John, actually, he hit me up last night for the first time in a couple of years because I've been in Cutthroat City World, and so oddly enough, but we didn't have a lot of money, and Steven and I were always huge fans, obviously, of everything Spielberg back in the '80s, but specifically not a Spielberg movie, but a film that's very near and dear to our hearts, The Gate. And so we kind of wanted to
love The Gate.
Oh, dude, it's the best, man. So we kind of wanted to create sort of a world that had, things that we would love for movies in the 80s and figure out how to do that. And specifically as it relates to the under the bed world, we didn't know how that was going to look. And Steve actually was not happy when he showed up to see the set because, we were limited on money. So our production designer, now looking back at it, Phil Boutte, ended up doing a great job for, what you see off camera versus what you actually see when you're shooting and how you make it look. And just the way that he ended up conceptualizing that, and then the way Steven's brain worked to come in to make it all work was crazy. Basically, that entire set was just a group of trees rented from Home Depot with fabric stretched all over them and spray painted and created and like all gooped up. And then Joe White did an incredible job with the lighting to, make it only see what you see. And so Steven walked in there and he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with just trees? And so he ended up taking them and he created like this hallway. And that's basically what's in the movie and what you saw. And I'll never forget when we actually finally saw it on camera, we were like, oh my God, this might actually work. And then we came up with the in-camera tricks to have the transition from going under the bed to actually being in the world and how that all worked. And I mean, we were just doing stuff on the fly, man. And, we wanted to have an original like monster creature and not something that was CG. So we had George Fringadakis and Vincent Guastini came up with this basically I don't even know if it was silicone suit that Ivan, who I always butcher his last name, but Jervivek, I always butcher. I'm sorry, Ivan. But he wore that thing every day. And so, he was actually able to interact with the actors. And that's why the movie is so like real and visceral, because everything was done in camera as much as possible. And
that practical
we were so limited on money for post VFX. We wanted it to be as real as it possibly could be and kind of be a throwback to how they did stuff in the 80s. So
exactly.
That's what we did, man. I'm really proud of that movie.
I actually, after watching it, I compared.
You don't have any sound, Jay. Can't hear you.
Oh, I don't? You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Denzel, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can't hear you guys.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
Let me go down and come back in.
All right, let's check with the connection
Entertain.
All right, Denzel, since we're talking about horror here, have you done any horror?
Oh, yeah. I did a film with Wes Craven called My Soul to Take.
Oh, My Soul to Take. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Have you ever, in the recognition, when you go out and people remember or recognize, oh, you're from this movie, how often do you get horror fans?
Varies. Not as much as the rest of my work, but like My Soul to Take fans, oh man, they are thorough. They are fans. So when I do have a fan, that loves my work from the Wes Craven film, they're absolutely overjoyed.
Do you have any desire to jump back into the horror world?
I'm gonna put him in. I'm gonna put him there soon. Yeah, I'm good. I can hear you guys.
Okay.
Can you now? Good. Wonderful.
To answer your quick question, Jay, yeah, absolutely. I'd be open to jumping back in the horror film world. I find it interesting. I find the suspense interesting, but you know, from a filmmaker perspective, like how do you create that tension? You know, how do you ratchet that up? How do you make that as real as possible for the viewer? That to me is sort of exciting. So even as an exercise, as a director, I mean, I think it's kind of everyone's dream to make their own personal version of The Shining. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
yeah.
what a fantastic thriller horror film that, you know, does its job at just sort of playing with the mind.
And I
Those
mean,
are ones that get me the most.
I was gonna say, speaking of directing, I mean, I was gonna toot Denzel's horn here for a second, because I mean, if you look at his filmography, right, and you know, being directed by Denzel Washington, Wes Craven, now being a part of the Marvel franchise, you know, as I've gotten to know him through the years, I've literally watched this man take all this in from all these different filmmakers, and you know, he's got stuff that he's working on that's going to happen very soon that I think is going to turn a lot of heads. And people forget how young D is still, because he's been doing this for, you know, the majority
20
of
years, like we said.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm not too far about, you've been doing it longer than I have. I'm like 16, 17 in now. But, you know, I can't wait to see what he starts doing as a filmmaker when he starts directing some of the stuff that he's lining up, because it's
well, speaking of your directing, Denzel, you have a couple of shorts out, right?
I do. I have a few short films out. You could find some works titled Criminal the Prologue. You could look up this short film called Jump, which I produced with Kofi Siriboe. Pretty Girl, which I did with Ryan Brown, which we did sort of a music video compilation, sort of like Beyonce's Lemonade. And actually, you know, impressive timing, I'm getting ready to launch my campaign for my next short film titled 5150. It's going to be starring Giovanna Depo. We have David Oyelowo as executive producer. We just raised our first bit of financing, so we're going to be looking to crowdfund the rest of the financing this upcoming Thursday. So yeah, that's my next project I've been working on.
When you do, I will definitely look for that link and share that to make sure that anybody who saw this can look over on your crowdfunding and hopefully help get your next your feature made.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot, to be honest with you, because I've been working on this project for a little under 3 years, and you know, it's very personal to me because it's basically about the power of modern day celebrity, and it's also about the stigma of mental health, especially, you know, within Black culture. So it's something for me as a public figure to sort of share my truths as an entertainer, and I'm kind of putting it all on wax, and I'm showing the adverse side effects of what, you know, celebrity and the power position that we would hold, you know, how that can be negative towards the mind, and how do you deal with that, especially if you don't have a support system, if you don't have people who love you and care about your genuine interests, if there
Especially
are people,
if you got a stigma against it.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to be honest with you, I'm first generation within my family of anybody to sort of enter this industry, and I definitely came in with my own preconceived sort of notions about what it could be, and of course I've been warned up and down the hill of like, don't hold yourself to Hollywood or sell out, you know. So I have my own values, and thankfully my family has held me down, but I could totally imagine and see what happens when you do get, you know, put on a pedestal and you reach a certain amount of fame, and it's like, well, you know, what do you tell the Justin Biebers of the world, you know, when you're handed it at 14 years old,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're doing more than probably a lot of your families have done in their lifetime? It's interesting to sort of look at that, you know, and there's something there that we're not analyzing, you know, as a culture. So I want to put a microscope on that and bring the conversation to the table, you know.
Damn, you make me excited for that.
I think
Thank you.
With mental health in general, you know, I'm just now realizing, you know, I had stuff in my childhood that affected me into my adult life. And then in producing film, always thinking that what I was doing as a producer was just the reason behind those problems. And then, you know, actually admitting that I had those issues. I was engaged and it cost me my fiance because of that. And so it takes a lot when you actually look in the mirror and, you know, address those problems and tackle them head on. And I think that's something that is really important for anybody, because we all go through those issues, but to actually, you know, have things to help you get those under control, that's really important. And so,
it's been used as a joke in the past, but it seems to me quite often the more I get to talk to amazing artists like both of you, it seems like a lot of us, and I'll put myself in a very small camp of that, who are entertainers, go out there and they are trying to solve some of their own issues, and that's where they find art as their own therapy. So I want to thank both of you for continuing that journey. And bringing that kind of conversation to light, always showing that somebody who has something to deal with can still be a success and move forward is always a good role model for everyone to have. Gentlemen, I don't want to cut you off, but I need to wrap things up because we're at the end of our time here. I thank both of you for joining us here at Sinister CyberCon. First of all, I also want to thank both of you personally because you have made me so excited about a film that I 2 weeks ago did not know about. And now getting to watch the trailer, speak to both of you, learn about the passion of the project and everything it took. I am 100% on board with Cutthroat City, and I cannot wait to see this in the theater.
Thank you.
So hopefully all of our people who are watching will as well. Denzel Whitaker and William Clevinger, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to remind everybody the last panel is at 5 o'clock for Sinister CyberCon. So hopefully I get to talk to both you gentlemen soon.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you.